All right, then a more formal welcome to all of you who are here in the Zoom room with us. A very warm welcome to everybody who is following us on Facebook on the stream. And we get to invite you for the next one of our n-ost kitchen talks. My name is Lucian. I'm the community manager for n-ost. And just to talk briefly about the format of the kitchen talks, it's kind of an idea that stemmed from the old tradition, especially in Eastern Europe, where people gather in their kitchens to talk politics, to talk all things of lives. And that was a very alive and rich tradition for us for n-ost. It's 7 o'clock. Eastern Europe. Every time when we had the media conferences and met with our colleagues in the European capital, and then we would hang out in the kitchen of some of the hosting journalists. Sadly, we obviously can't do that in the moment due to the pandemic that everybody is sick of. But we managed to move that to the digital realm. And so today we have Fationa, who is inviting us to her home. She's a member of our board, and she's a journalist based in Tirana, in Albania, and we're going to talk about the parliamentary elections in Albania today. Last week, we had a very interesting conversation also about the elections in Bulgaria, and that was we get very positive feedback. We're very happy that we get so much feedback, and we got positive feedback too. And that was also where this kitchen talk was inspired. So a big praise also to Fationa, once again, coming up with this idea and organizing this. And I'm looking very much forward to having this conversation with all of you. It's decidedly informal. It's in the kitchen. I'm sitting here with some made-up version of a Moscow Mule that's gin-based, but I hope everybody of you get a nice drink, and let's talk some politics. Fationa, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Lucian, for your introduction. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us in tonight's kitchen talk, where we are going to speak about elections in Albania. I really wanted to have a glass of wine with me while hosting this event, but I have to stick with tea. Since after this talk, I have to go in a TV show and speak again about elections. So having wine before it is not really a great idea. Last Sunday, Albania held elections won by the Prime Minister Edi Rama. His socialist party was able to get 74 mandates out of 140 that comprise the Albanian parliament. As a result, Rama is the first prime minister in 30 years in Albania to win 3 elections in a row. The main opposition party, Democratic Party, led by Luzim Basha, won 59 mandates, while the junior opposition one, the Socialist Movement for Integration, got 4. On the other hand, Social Democratic Party, led by a controversial businessman, won 3, and it's expected that these mandates will support Rama majority. The process and the elections result were considered legitimate by the international observers and Albanians' main partners like the US, the European Union. However, opposition and the country president have accused the majority of vote buying and voters' intimidation, while the electoral campaign was very tense and characterized by lack of trust between parties. In order to speak about the impact that these elections are going to have on the future of the country, on its opposition, on the Albanian relationship with the European Union and the region, especially here, Kosovo, we have invited 3 distinguished guests. So we have tonight with us Ilva Tare. She's a journalist, TV presenter, and head of news at Euronews Albania. We have Lutfi Dervishi, journalist and host of the TV show Përball in Albanian public television. And we have as well Blendi Salaj, producer and presenter at A2 CNN TV channel. So welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I will start immediately with Ilva. So Ilva, Euronews Albania, together with MRB company, conducted many polls during the electoral campaign, as well as an exit polls on the voting day on Sunday. My question is, Did you manage to capture the right way, in the right way, the mood of Albanian citizens over these elections? And according to polls, but also your estimation, what were some of the strong points that opened the way for Edi Rama government to win a third mandate? So, Ilva, over to you.
Thank you, Fationa. Hi to everyone who joined this informal talk. Actually, I'm not in my kitchen, to be honest, but I'm in the office where I cook my shows every night. And I've been doing so for the last 4 months intensively, covering surveys every week. But they were monthly done, but I spread them every week in order to produce more shows and to know more about what people were saying in these surveys. I believe, yes, the surveys did capture the mood of the Albanian voters before, during the campaign as well. We had 5 waves of national polls that reflected the positions of the political parties against each other and their dynamics during the campaign. We did have some regional surveys as well in the capital, Tirana, in Elbasan, and in Durrës, 2 different districts. The Socialist Party in all these waves remained pretty constant for the 3 months, while a smaller party like SMI, Socialist Movement for Integration, and Democratic Party had different trajectories. And actually, we analyzed week by week how things were changing in our one-to-one interviews. The surveys weren't done by phone calls, and due to the fact that there is a lot of mistrust and conspiracy theories usually on these surveys. So the company that did the surveys for us, they are part of Counter Group, which is London-based and very good standards. They decided to do one-to-one interviews for every poll, but also to have around 2,000 phone calls and focus groups in order to double check and triple check for their own before publishing the data. So they wanted to be safe and sure what we were discussing. So all national polls, I believe, reflected the strong tendency for the 3 parties to consolidate their traditional historical support without being converted to each other voters, or what was very interesting, they weren't able to capture new voters or the gray electorate, as we call it, from what we saw in the results. This kind of dynamic, indeed, and we discussed in our panels with the expert that I invited every week, favored definitely Socialist Party, taking into consideration that their share of votes in the national level. And it started from January and it kept all the way through April. It was approximately 48 to 49%, which is the current result they got on the Sunday's election. Just a little thing there, what we kind of didn't see, and it is impossible for a national sample to get small parties like Social Democrats Party that got 3 mandates. They have their votes concentrated in certain districts. And when you have a national poll, it's difficult to get this kind of local vote. Let's call it this way. So this was the only thing. We did have others, but not specifically this party that got 3 mandates in the end. But the rest, SP, DP, and SMI, we were right in the point. Like really, we are doing this last days of comparison with our last survey results and the official result from the Central Electoral Committee, and there is no difference. Very difficult to spot the difference in percentages and in mandates. Strong points for Rama, I think there were 2. His personal involvement and government efficiency, or at least from what we saw from people's answers, government efficiency in addressing 2 main current problems, the earthquake, the aftermath of the earthquake, and managing COVID-19. The management of these 2 issues were widely evaluated in positive terms by the public. And this was to our disbelief in our discussions in the panels, like how could the government, after 2 mandates in a row, with a lot of problems with the earthquake, the economy suffering, the COVID, they were getting such high evaluation from the public. And I believe especially COVID-19 management and massive vaccination that started in the late March, close to April, did have an impact in people's belief that this government is able to manage their problems, their life. So I think that's where decreased the chances of the opposition to set their agenda, especially the month before the campaign. So they try to ignore these two main problems in order not to give credit to the government. And they were talking more about economy and unemployment. But it seemed that people were interested on earthquake and vaccination and COVID, and they really wanted to see the end of these 2 years, 2 difficult years that they were going through. Opposition campaign itself served to reinforce mobilize the partisan traditional support, but unfortunately, as in our surveys it was shown, it could not go beyond this perimeter.
Yeah, thank you. First thing, I'm just going to get back to you. But before doing so, I just want to invite all the people that are following right now, in case that you have questions, please type them down in the chat function. And on the other hand, you can just also raise your hands and pose directly the questions to our guests tonight. Now I just want to move to Lutfi. And my question for you, Lutfi, is going to be how these elections is going to impact the Albanian EU integration process. After, in fact, the country has been waiting for a very long time for the accession talks to be open. What is going to be the role of opposition also in this process, in a time when its leaders consider these elections marred with irregularities? So, Luti,
thank you, Fationa. I mean, elections in Albania are never boring, and for that matter, 20 April elections are interesting in different points. Elections still remains the Achilles heel of Albanian democracy. During the last 30 years, and Sunday elections were the 10th parliamentary elections, only 3 parliamentary elections are accepted. The result is accepted by the losing part. And that has been case of 1992 when the system changed and then Democratic Party came in power. And then 13 years later in 2005, when the socialist lost after serving 2 mandates in power. And the last one, when the elections were accepted, there were 2013, when the Democrats accepted the defeat and the socialists came into the power. So in that sense, I do not expect that those elections will be accepted as free and fair, at least by the main opposition party. And they are now compiling evidence, and they will present a list of the complaints. The elections are a race which you do not have a medal for the second place. So the question is that everybody expected that someone is going to resign. And there were expectations that those who lose the elections will resign. But the Albanian experience shows that we had resignations of the leaders of the big parties only in 2 cases when they lost the power, when they lost the election by being in power. So 2005, 2013. And I do not expect for the foreseeable future that the leader of the opposition will concede and will resign due to the defeat. The elections were one of the key issues that Albanian political class had to deal of in terms of fulfilling the conditions for de facto opening the negotiation with the EU. As we speak, I'm not sure if that will be ticked off as the condition. The new institution will take their mandate by September. So these 4 months, I expect that there will be, some complaints, and we have to know that although the Albanian system is improving and using more technology and using more secure methods on counting and of the votes, I have to remind that there are at least 55 cases lodged to the special prosecutor before the election day, mainly by the opposition and the president for allegedly vote buying. So yes, international community has spoken with a unified voice on two main messages. First, the urge and the need to certify the election, and the second one is to have a fully speedy and transparent investigations of any complaints that the parties might have. What the tradition suggests us is that the justice system in Albania operates very slowly when it comes to the election irregularities. There is now new institutions taking place in the justice, and there is a lot of pressure, especially by the internationals, to speed up things. And we heard just today the general prosecutor is putting pressure on the prosecutors in the districts to speed up their complaints and to investigate every case. So I would not say that we did great. I mean, when I say we, I mean as a whole in these elections. So there was progress, but there was also problems. And one of the problems which is not addressed properly, it's vote buying, using the public funds during the election campaign. And the reason that we are seeing these problems surfacing time and again in the Albanian election is that they were never in the past fully investigated, and we did not see anyone serving sentences for using crime, as we call it, election crimes. The political dialogue that is necessary to move the country forward seems that it's a bit too early to be enthusiastic. The Prime Minister has declared his will for a new chapter in Albanian politics, but it remains to be seen what does he mean and what he is going to offer to the opposition in a way to work constructively in the parliament. One thing which I expect for sure is that we are not going to see what we seen in before 2 years when the opposition left the parliament with the so-called burning mandates, and later on not to take part in the local election. So I do not expect this, because the opposition took that bitter lesson in 2018 and 2019. And so I think that they had a big lesson, that they had to work and to address their complaints within the Albanian institutions. But I do not see anything near that the Albanian political leaders will put the interest of the country before the interest of their own party, or even worse, their personal interest.
So, Ludi, I have just a short follow-up question.
Sure.
Do you expect, like, for example, protest in the streets, as we have seen, I mean, before when opposition was disputing the elections?
Well, I'm not sure if I'm answering what I hope and what is going to really to take place. But I think that we are not going to see the street protest because there is this lesson of you go nowhere and you get nothing by just protesting in the streets. But I think that they will try to use public denunciation. They started today with a video footage of famous case in Elbasan, and I think what they are going to do is a repetition of 2001 elections. So 20 years ago, the opposition at that time, which is the same party, they compiled what they called Black Book of the Elections. And with the suggestion of the former prime minister, I think that they are following that line, that they want to collect evidence and present to the public and push for investigation. And I think that they will push not only through the channels of justice, but also through the channels available in the new parliament, through setting up an investigation committee or anything like that. But I do not expect the protests in the streets, even for the very fact that the summer is coming and the people are more close to the beach rather than close to the streets.
Good point. So thank you. So I'm going to continue now with Blendi. So Blendi, in these elections, we saw that inspiring, in fact, civic parties, as well as independent candidates, didn't manage to enter the parliament. And generally, the support for the new alternatives out there was low, even in large urban areas, for example, like Tirana. Why do you think this happened?
Well, I think there's a lot of reasons for it. First, I don't think that the offer was excellent. I know a lot of people in the civic society or in different areas of life, people of integrity and contribution who were not part of the offering and did not take part in any of these political parties that came up during this time. Let's see what they were. You had these parties that were formed by former DP people like Astrid Patozis, or you had the Josefina's party. So that there are people who left the DP and they started their own parties, and everybody started another party. So you have all these different little parties that get some votes here and there, but these people are not, able to cooperate, to come into a single front. They are old political figures, trying to recycle themselves. So this part I will not consider as a new civic offering. More of a rendezvous, with another chance to enter politics, but it didn't work in the end. Because for these people, things get too polarized. People have to make a decision, and I think a lot of them were pragmatic. And especially the last month of the campaign, you saw that the media cycle and all the TV ads and everywhere else on the web was dominated by this two bipolar fight. You got the opposition and the majority, and that's it. Everything in between is just left out and wiped clean. And a lot of these people, like say from Misma Thuria, which is a new and a more civical party, they got no TV time, very little, and very few stations were still willing to host them. But on the majority of and the biggest TV channels, they got no chance to appear at all, because the fight was concentrated, and the media is accomplice in that, because they work closely with politics, and and even the media's interest is served by having these debates that involve major actors rather than give some space to newer versions. But I'm not convinced, to be honest with you, Fationa, that we had a real civic movement, coming grassroots from the people, that is like nice and clean. And then, you got the students involved, and the youth, and the working class, and the middle class. And it's about changing things for real, and people who have contributions in different areas, and they're coming about as citizens. That none of them were that. You know, then you have this conniving people behind them. You're not sure as to who's financing them exactly, you know, and who's in the background. So, I mean, and also I'm going to say this. So this is the part that belongs to the political formation themselves, which I'm not totally convinced that represent what we are really looking for in terms of sweeping change. On the other hand, you have a society that is very distrustful. You know, like I truly believe this. We have very little social capital in Albania at this moment. Fortunately, that can be grown over time. So it's not, you know, something that cannot be reversed. But at the moment, we are people that do not trust each other. We do not trust that most people do the right thing. You know, our belief is that, you know, elections don't change anything. You know, and we keep saying that in our tables. And so people don't get involved. They don't get out the votes, you know, as they should, because they don't believe it. You see it in business. You know, people build a nice hotel and they hire their, you know, uncle, because they don't trust anybody outside the family circle. So he ruins the experience there because he knows shit about running a hotel, but he's the only person that he can trust. So, so mistrust, I think, is something that is at the heart of this as well. And so it's hard for people to get out their vote to people that they don't know. And also, what I've noticed during this time was that it's very hard to change the minds of people that are my parents' age, you know, in their 60s. I've had debates with several of them as to what is the right way to vote, and they don't agree with me. They say the devil they know is the better devil than the devil they don't know. And also, it was touched by Hilda before. I would like to reinforce on that. I think that the pandemic itself and the way that the government has handled it, although that's also debatable, but it's generally acceptable. And we've been very lucky in Albania with COVID-19, in my opinion. I think that people were scared to relinquish control of this management right now. Like it's not the time to jump from horse to horse while they're running. This is from Wag the Dog, I think, in that Hollywood movie. But it's real, because this situation, they say, well, what happens if this government leaves and then a new government is formed and you got these vaccines and we need to have them, and then what happens? And are these guys able? And generally, people don't believe that the PP people are as good at managing things that Edi Rama's government is. You know, that I think that's a perception in general. And so people decided this is not a moment to experiment. And these new movements, they look like a nice trail in the park, and you say, yeah, I want to go there, and maybe I'll love it, and I'll go there every weekend, and I'll start hiking. But this is not the time to hike. Right now, I want to stay home because COVID, you know. So I think that also played a role.
Yeah, no, thank you, Blendi. We were discussing yesterday with Ilva, and so it's also this idea that the electoral campaign was very much polarized. And I think also this polarization in between two big blocks kind of like left also what we call the gray electoral out of the voting. And so maybe people like, I mean, they stick to the old parties, and they weren't like really keen on embracing these new alternatives. But yes, I agree. There were some new parties out there, but they not necessarily had, like, I mean, new people in power in running. But it was also, like, I mean, Nisma Thuria, or the hashtag initiative, if we could translate it in English. So it was a group of young people educated abroad, so they had like a program. They were very outspoken about the corruption, but yet they didn't manage to get an MP in the parliament. But hopefully we're going to talk a little bit later about that. So now I'm just going to go back to Ilva, and I have a question for her. So in this election, Silva, we saw as well a weak performance, also, but three independent candidates in Tirana, Leja, and Girocastra, supported by Vetvendosia, self-determination movement led by Albin Kurti, who is running the government in Kosovo. In your opinion, is this the end of Vetvendosia political engagement to Albania because of this result?
My personal opinion is no. If we know a little bit from the history of Vetvendosia, self-determination, I don't think they will give up. They will still fight for their presence here. And I think the role and the existence of Vetvendosia in Albania in short terms will be very much affected by the relationship of the two current prime ministers, Albin Kurti and Edi Rama, which if you saw the interview with the prime minister before the last week of the campaign, he declined to answer, to give a comment on Albin Kurti's declaration that he would vote yes in case there was a referendum for the unification of Albania and Kosovo. He said, I'll give you an answer and a comment only after the election. So he was very, very convinced. And even though I try hard, he only said, so he didn't want to talk for some reason. But I believe they both now need each other in order to increase their legitimacy and popularity across the border and the entire Albanian neighborhood, if I can call it that way. So I expect the activity of Vetvendosia in Albania to be a direct consequence of the above relationship mentioned, the relationship of the two prime ministers. In the long perspective, definitely yes, it will be affected. Unification of Albania and Kosovo is in the Vetvendosia DNA and in the Albin Kurti belief system. So in this regard, fusion and merging in a political market and having national parties is part of this understanding, or at least the way I understand it. So in case of a positive relationship and mutual understanding between Kosovo Prime Minister Kurti and Albania's Prime Minister Rama, I see the role of Vetvendosia in Albania as an appendix of this relationship. I believe they don't have the luxury to go against each other now that they are both heads of governments in two countries. It is a must for their political existence to find a way to cooperate.
Yeah, this is true, but I just want to follow up with Luti in this. Do you think that the damage Luti have been already done? Because Kurti was very vocal. I mean, he came to Albania during the campaign, and he was campaigning. And of course, this is not the only reason why we have this tense relationship in between Kurti and Rama. So it seems that the first thing is the fact that Rama is a very close friend of Hashim Thaçi, which is the main rival now in Hague, but the main rival of Kurti for his power in Kosovo. But also Kurti has been against Rama for some very important initiatives like the Balkanic Schengen, for example. And also he considered Rama a complicit in the idea of Kosovo exchanging territories with Serbia. So, Luti, do you think that this is going to be easily overcome by Rama and Kurti? All this kind of like all this basket of issues, in fact, because it's not just one.
I fully agree with Ilva on that topic. So we have to have in mind two big personalities and conflicting personalities. Rama, on one hand, tried and showed himself as the leader of the Albanians in the region during the 2014-15, and so he is like, a big leader who can deal and who can cut deals and who can deal with without any complex with a Serbian leader who also pretends to be the leader of the Serbs in the region. And now we see Kurti, who claims that role somehow as an inspirational leader of Albanians, not only in Kosovo where he's voted, but also we see him coming in Albania with representatives of the Albanians and Montenegro and Macedonia, and presented his candidates here in Tirana. And we have now a paradox. So we have a Prime Minister Kurti in the most powerful political figure right now in Kosovo, which is in opposition in Tirana. He's an Albanian citizen, and as an Albanian citizen, he has dual citizenship, so he's free to enjoy his rights, even creating the parties. But it's not something that is producing good results. We saw that the government was congratulated by the government of Turkey, Greece, Italy, Austria, Germany, Italy, US, of course. And the last one who congratulated Rama on victory was Prime Minister Kurti. And it was not analyzing his words were not although look like friendly and brotherly, but you see that there is a competition. In terms of the relationship and the success of self-determination in Tirana, in Albania, that very much would depend on the success of self-determination in Kosovo. If they succeed in fulfilling their objectives in Pristina, then we might see kind of a wave sweeping up from north of Albania to deep in the south of the country. But that's not likely to going to happen soon. There are a lot of problems between two countries, small and big ones. And when it comes to cooperation and doing big things, it's more like doing big talks rather than doing concrete things.
Yeah, thank you. So now I see that we have a question from the audience. So it's Ilir Zengu, and I'm just going to read for you the question. So question for all panelists. Albanian diaspora voting has been a change agent in the North Macedonia for a while, and most recently empowering and enabling the big changes in political leadership in Kosovo as well. Albania, on the other hand, failed to enable voting for its diaspora and failing further behind in the political rotation. Albanian media also failed to introduce Albanian diaspora sentiments in polls for these recent elections. How does Albanian media plan to improve the inclusion of Albanian diaspora voters for future elections in Tirana? So first I want to invite Blendi and later on Ilva, maybe to this idea of polls, like why the sentiments of Albanians abroad were also not being included in the polls, and what do you think about that? But let's start with Blendi.
Well, I think that the fact that the diaspora did not vote was not a coincidence or an accident. We know that there was no will, to make that happen. And there's more than one reason as to why people are unwilling to let people vote by, I don't know, by some electronic mean from where they are. They keep saying that you can vote if you come back, but that's very costly, of course, and that's very that's not right, and other people do it. And I think that it would be great for Albania, having lived for a good period of time abroad. I was a guy who was interested in what happened here, and I was able for 12 years, 13 years almost, to see it from the US as to what it's like to be an immigrant and to read the Albanian newspapers and watch Albanian TV and follow Albanian politics as well. So I know that their intentions are excellent for the country. I know that their vote would be emancipated. They would use the standards, their local standards, to judge our local actors, and that doesn't fit very well for them, because if you're a guy sitting in Holland or in Germany or anywhere in the world, basically in the Western world, basically, or mostly, I shouldn't say, but somewhere where democracy functions well, then you will want to require that standard in your vote. You can't be bought, you can't be forced to vote, you can't be menaced in anything in from where you are. So people they can't control it. It's unpredictable. And as you saw in this election, we have socialist party that is very good at getting out the votes. They know people, they know their needs, they know where they live, they know their cousins, they know what they like, and they try to be friends, they try to help, they try to get their vote in any way they can. So it's very difficult if you have guys in Australia that want to vote. And there's a big diaspora as well. I know this for sure. I'll tell you, because of that experience abroad. Of all the people who live abroad that are Albanian, a very small percentage is going to vote. Most of them do not care. They don't follow anything that happens here anymore. A lot of them are born there, so they don't know the guys. They don't want to know the guys that are running here. So it would be just the percentage, the low percentage of people who are interested, who are maybe looking to go back someday, who maybe have parents or who are older and they don't care about local politics, so they want to follow this from where they are. But I think that it would be a good vote, and it didn't happen because the politicians did not want it to happen. They didn't need the opposition. We know that for a fact. They vote anything that they like because they have the votes without the opposition. And the majority used the argument that because the opposition was not there, they could not do it this time. And they've done many things without the opposition when they want to do it. So it doesn't hold as a legal argument or a political argument in that sense. I think they don't want the vote because they can't control the vote.
Ilva, what do you think? Do you share the same opinion? Why it is so hard for Albania? I mean, Albania has a diaspora, at least an estimation of 1.7 million of people throughout the world. And how it is possible that for 30 years, we didn't create the mechanism to make possible for them to vote from the places where they live?
Fatuna, I'll answer you in a second. Blendi, you almost had a BBC moment there, your son opening the door, but you escaped that. So let me come back to a very serious topic that I've had it close to my heart, and I've tried in my shows to have the voice of diaspora representatives talk about what they want, how they want to be involved in the politics here, and how they see the potential to change with their vote the current status quo in Albania. I believe, and I think there is some truth in that, and maybe not the main reason, but one of the reasons is the fact that we have the culture of lack of trust in the institutions. We have a poisoned climate in terms of dialogue and communication between cross-party dialogue. So, and we are now having the opposition saying that the election was stolen and there was use of administration, public administration, intimidation, and this and that. Can you imagine what would have been, have they been telling if these votes would have come through the Albanian consulates abroad, through mail, counted here? It would have just added more to an existent problem that we didn't that we weren't able to escape this time too. So this is the first reason why I think it was impossible. Second, we know it's not a secret, they don't want it. Obviously, the big parties are not interested to have voters that may use the opportunity now that they live in societies that are more democratic, more developed. They know more about their rights. They know that they can use the vote. They will not buy, they will not sell the vote for 50 or 100 years. They want to change the system to make the institutions more functioning. So in this regard, yes, I believe both big parties don't want it. And I also believe, like I have lived abroad myself. I think there is a big expectation when it comes to diaspora that they will be involved in voting, and maybe this comes after the experience in Kosovo. But I don't think Albanians, the ones that live abroad and they are very well established, they would be very interested or keen to vote. It would be great. Media has to embrace this opportunity, but I don't see it's the right moment. We already have, our house is already troubled by the votes inside the country, and would have added more trouble the current climate.
Thank you, Ilva. I have another question coming from audience. Is Kimeta. She's asking, do you think that the third mandate of Socialist Party will help the country to improve democracy in Albania, or it will strengthen autocracy? Now, this is a big question, and in fact, this is the first time, in 30 years that we will have a party in a third mandate. So it's kind of like an experiment. So this has been only possible, years ago, before the fall of communism. So I will start with Lutfi, and then Blendi and Ilva can add something.
I think the question somehow has answered itself. It's more like, when you have leaders, strong leaders, they are not compatible with strong institutions. And strong leaders tends more to autocracy rather than to democracy. And seeing how powerful the current prime minister is in terms of the votes and in terms and the way that he composed his cabinet. So we joke sometimes and said we have a cabinet with one prime minister and one minister, and all others are deputy ministers. So I'm afraid in terms of we might see more authoritarian behavior and tendencies rather than consolidation of the institutions. But having said that, we have to see the fruits of the new institutions of the justice, which have been, heavily involved, heavily invested by the internationals, and see if this slogan "all equal before the law," it will be, it will have some meaningful meaning in practical terms, or it just it will remain like a nice slogan.
Thank you. Luti, so Blendi, what do you think? It's going to be more stabilocracy, or it's going to be autocracy? So, important question.
Well, it remains to be seen, because I think that a lot of the opposition, mostly, frankly, has accused Rama of being a dictator. So now we're rolling back to autocrat. They've accused him of many worse things, and this dictatorship thing, the dictatorship has been installed and everything else. He kind of ignores what happened in Albania for 45 years, and we know what real dictatorship looks like, and this is not it, to be honest. Said that, is it functioning democracy? No, we know that also, as Luti said, I totally agree with what he said. We want this to work better. It's a dysfunctional democracy, but it is a democracy, in a bad shape. But I think that it can be fixed. Now, the thing about Rama is he knows what a good democracy feels like and looks like and works like. We know this from his writings. He can describe it. So the guy is not a moron, and he's not a dictator in the sense that some other guys are, who they know what they know and they set in their ways. So he has an understanding of it. But on the other hand, he's shown signs of authority. We also know that he's a guy who dictates his will on his people, and he doesn't take no for an answer and all of that. So I'm torn. I'm torn as to how is he going to act. Is it going to infect him totally, and is he going to lose it and become one of the typical and forgettable autocrats, or is the intellectual in him going to save Rama's soul from this? But it's a lot of power, to be honest. Now he's right on the edge. He's testing his limits, I suppose. I don't think he's a dictator. I don't share that with the opposition or anything like that. But yeah, he can be a heavy guy, and a heavy guy who runs the country for 12 years is not just a heavy guy sitting in a bar somewhere. He's a heavy guy with repercussions for the country and all of us. I just I wish it well. I don't know. It's debatable.
Ilva, what do you think?
Well, we have to watch and see, but by watch I mean doing our role as media, as a watchdog, even more, and be more careful to monitor and to ask, to require for transparency, and to be there right behind every decision in order to make every decision accountable. Of course, as Luti said, we need the justice system to be functioning finally. We keep calling it new justice system. It's not new anymore. We need the justice system of former reform to perform finally. So that will help in order to hold the government accountable. As I saw Stina briefly writing in the message that I caught that that message from Rama's speech after the victory. He is trying, he will try, I don't know if he will succeed considering the internal Democratic Party dynamics, but he will try to have the Democratic Party main opposition involved somehow. He is not saying co-governing, he's saying cooperating. We have had lots of important, crucial reforms towards opening negotiations and chapters for the EU integration. So I believe there is some truth in what he wants. He sees that this is an opportunity for him to have a solid for a third mandate 4 years ahead. I don't know if the opposition, how they will answer and what kind of cooperation they may offer, they may accept. I don't know if that's good too, or I have to see a model, a clear proposal to understand what kind of cooperation they may structure, they may build. But I saw in that speech that he seemed quite aware of the weight that he's carrying in his shoulder, and as a Socialist Party leader, I'm afraid there was a little perception that I gathered from some people before the election that the country has so many problems from institution malfunctioning, lack of trust in institutions, lack of rule of law. So they were saying it's better to have another mandate of SP to finish certain things than have a new administration coming up and firing some people and hiring some others. So they considered, there was a perception of people, percentage of people that they consider this as a loss of time. So if Edi Rama wants to make things better, he should involve as much broader political spectrum in order to be able to provide for Albanians.
Thank you, Ilva. So we have this question from Mr. Klapper about the offer that Rama in fact did to the opposition leaders in order to collaborate together. I mean, it's not sure what Rama means by that, but also so governing together in a grand coalition might be an option. So Luti, do you think that that Basha, the leader of opposition, is going to take this offer?
We don't know specifically what offer means. I don't think that grand coalition is a best or a good option for Albania right now. Country needs the opposition within the institution. The format of the cooperation is still unknown. What does that mean? They are trying now to impeach the president for the second time. Are they going to offer the position of the new president to the opposition? Are they going to offer more constitutional guarantees within the parliament or something else? So it remains to be seen, but I don't think that the grand coalition, the country doesn't need that. Rama, the prime minister, doesn't need that. He has no reason for that. He has all the numbers and the powers in the parliament. Improving the rhetoric. Yes, here Rama could give a huge contribution because we know his rhetoric and he's a good orator in the parliament and in the TV screens. So in that sense, he might start giving a good contribution in improving the political dialogue in the country. But offering. There is a lot of talk and perceptions that he's offering, offering to govern together with Basha. I think he damaged more Basha with that offer right now, because Basha is in a very weak position, so he's getting heat from his own party for the third defeat in the row. And the last thing the Basha needs now is an offer to govern together with Prime Minister Rama after this bitter, short experience of governing together prior to the previous parliamentary elections in 2017.
Thank you, Luzim. We have a question from Tim Judah, the correspondent of The Economist for the Balkans. The campaign for Vjosa River is one of the few Albanian stories to have gained at least a little attention outside of Albania recently. It is at all an issue in Albania, or it was in this election, or was it in the election? So Ilva first, and then Blendi.
It was, yes, it was in the election from several actors, even from the President of the Republic. He took some personal statements and involvement in the issue. In the end, we had Prime Minister Rama saying that Vjosa River will not be damaged and there will not be any construction there. So we have to see how that will evolve. But yes, it was somehow involved in the fight between the opposition and the government. But thanks to Leo DiCaprio posting in social networks and civil society engagement through the social networks.
So what do you think, Blendi? Was the Vjosa issue some important one during the elections? And it is an important one for Albania?
Yeah, well, it is important for, first of all, people who care for the environment. But it wasn't a issue that was debated between the two political forces. You know, if we go back to the big debate between the DP and the SP and all the exchanges that they share between themselves, it wasn't an issue. You know, I don't remember the opposition. I might be mistaken, but in my recollection, I don't recall anybody from the opposition even mentioning the River Vjosa. It was posed as a question to the Prime Minister on one of the nightly TV shows. I was present in that studio. It was made by a colleague as a question, and he responded that Vjosa was going to be protected, as Ilva said. I guess it's a little more technical than that. What they are actually requesting is that Vjosa be declared a national park, you know, and that would actually save it, no matter who is the Prime Minister. But we go back to the thing Lutfi said earlier between strong leaders and strong institutions. So Edi Rama is saying that, trust me, it's going to be okay, you know. But we don't have an answer in terms of, will Vjosa be a national park, or will it gain some sort of protected status of some kind, you know, that would address the concerns of the environmentalists and local communities as well.
So Luti, do you have something to add, but not just for Vjosa, but also the fact that we are having, I mean, hydropower plants in almost every small river in the country, and this is damaging a lot, I mean, the country potential touristic future. And especially we have the Prime Minister that is saying that he's going to give the migrants that are going to get back in Albania a grant of 5,000 euro if they are going to invest in the village. But then I have spoken with some people in the village, and when you construct a hydropower plant in that area, I mean, that is the end of tourism. So how do you see this?
I have to repeat that I also happened to be in another show with the Prime Minister, and he was asked specifically about the Vjosa River, and his answer was clear, no. But that remains to be seen. What I see as a positive development, Fationa, is that now we see a level of awareness among not only the media and civil society actors, but also the inhabitants of the areas where the dams, hydropower plants are being built are more not only aware, but they are aggressive and they are protesting. And we see, and I hope that the chapter of building hydropower plants in every river in the country is being closed, or is going to be closed, because now we see more attention now and huge investments in the solar energy.
Yeah, I think definitely this is a good news, and I think that there's also some reflection from the political leader, because as you already said, like, I mean, the protest of the local population has been very strong. I mean, really, really strong, and something to be congratulated. So we are coming to an end. Thank you everyone for joining us tonight in this n-ost event. It was a real pleasure to host it, and I really hope that we provided you with some valuable information, not only about the election, but also for the country in general. So see you soon in other n-ost events of this kinds, and over to Lucian now.
Yeah, thank you very much, Fatjona, for hosting. Thank you to our kitchen guests or panelists for sharing your insights and your perspective from the country. I find it very interesting. Like, Albania, sadly enough, is a country that gets very limited attention, and at least in Berlin. And it's very interesting to talk to you. If we will stick around for a while, I think some of you have to leave to participate in a TV show, but we will stick around for a little bit. If you people who are interested in Albania or the Balkans just want to talk to each other, then you're very much welcome. I will also post an invitation to a Slack workspace that we're starting to build up for all journalists working on Eastern Europe and who are affiliated with n-ost and who want to talk to each other. So if that's anything that's interesting to you, you're very welcome. We would be glad to have you around. Beyond that, if you're affiliated with n-ost in any way and you have a topic that's important to you that you want to talk about in your kitchen, just write us, let us know. We will help organize something. If you have guests that you want to invite, that is very much welcome. The last 2 kitchen talks have been focused on the Balkan and elections, but that is by no way exclusive. We're open to all sorts of topics. All right, and yeah, I think that I'll say goodbye to those who've been following us on Facebook, because we're kind of moving now to the talking just point in the kitchen. And yeah, Natalie, if you could end the stream.
So sorry, guys, I have just to stay for another 5 minutes, and Lutfi as well, because we are going to go together in a TV show and have again Rama in front of us and try to pose some of the questions that there were also raised tonight.
Right.
Just many thanks from Chicago.